Hey everybody, it's me, Crazyfrankie, and I'd like to welcome you to my NFL Playoffs Wild Card Weekend picks. The playoffs are finally here, and wow, when I look back at what's happened throughout this entire NFL season, boy, it just came fast. I mean, we're now in 2019, we just started the year, and I'm probably as pumped up for the playoffs as I've been in probably maybe quite some time. Hopefully that this year's playoffs hopefully become memorable. Well, usually when I do playoff picks, I mean, well, look, anybody who picks the NFL playoff games here, it's tough. It's really tough picks here. So it's really tough to say what happens here and what will happen, especially because the NFL really it's unpredictable. But if you look at this weekend's slate of games here, both in the AFC and NFC, a lot of these games look pretty intriguing and they look interesting. And possibly some of these games could be classics here. So, anyways, I'm just going to get straight to my picks because, I just want to get this video out there now. I'm already late as it is on this video. And I would get into some thoughts, but you know what? I'm just going to go straight into these NFL picks. All right, so the way I do it is that I always go with the AFC American Football Conference first, and then do the NFC last. Well, normally just by alphabetical order. I don't know. I'm kind of a dweeb, just even putting it that way. But anyways, all right, let's get into the NFL playoff wildcard games. So as I said, let's begin in the AFC Conference. So let's begin with AFC wildcard game, the Indianapolis Colts versus the Houston Texans. As of this video, the Texans are a 2.5-point favorite in this one, and I probably would say maybe 2 points. During the regular season, the Colts played them very well, each winning one game in their meeting. They split the two games between each other, both winning in their respective, both winning on the road actually. And the last time that and let me give you some quick stats here in terms of the quarterbacks here for Andrew Luck. 24-35, 285 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception in that playing game that they had with Tennessee. He didn't play all that well, but he's going to need to play a lot better in this game. Watson in clinching the division over the Jaguars, he went 25 of 35, 234 yards, no touchdowns, and no interceptions. He didn't play all that much in that game, as they had the game pretty much in hand, and the Texans ended up winning that division. When it comes to a rematch between divisional opponents, they're definitely tough games they're definitely a tough one to pick here. Houston is a slight favorite in this one. For Indianapolis to win here, they really got to establish a good offense. Houston's defense definitely needs to come up big here because really, if you look at it, both their offenses are about evenly matched. So this, in my honest opinion, this is a tough pick here. Tough to say who wins this game. But in the end, I got to make a pick here. Both offenses are evenly matched. Defense-wise, I give a slight, they're about evenly matched too. So this is really a tough game here. For Indianapolis to win, they got to really establish the run early in this game, and they got to find a way to stop Watson defensively because he's good out of the pocket. Now, for Houston to win, it's plain and simple. Watson has to do well out of the pocket, and he's able to find his targets. He's be able to get his pass through. Houston's defense really has got to get to Andrew Luck in this game. Otherwise, Andrew Luck may really put up numbers in this game and could give Indianapolis the win. It's really a tough one to pick here, but if I'm going to make a pick here, I'm actually going to go on the upset here. I'm actually going to pick the Indianapolis Colts. I think the Colts and their defense really had come alive the last few weeks of the regular season, and they really did a great job on Tennessee. Henry for Tennessee wasn't much of a factor in that game, even though he did rush very well, but Indy did a great job in stopping the run, and they're going to be put to the test against Watson once he gets out of the pocket here. But I actually like Indianapolis in this game. I think Indianapolis will win in a very close game, possibly by a field goal here. I like the Colts to advance in the playoffs here. Colts over the Texans. AFC wildcard game, the Chargers versus the Ravens. Now, these two teams have already met in the regular season going back to Week 15. And actually, Week 16, I should say. I'm sorry, Week 16. It wasn't pretty. it wasn't pretty for the Chargers after going on a big winning streak and a big win in Kansas City. Following that game a week later, Baltimore and Jackson really came in there and surprised the Chargers big time in this game. In that game at the StubHub Center. So here's some quick stats here. Rivers in his last game against the Broncos, 14 of 24, 176 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. And Lamar Jackson, 14 of 24, 179 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, in a very close game he had against the Browns. The Browns almost came back to beat him, but Baltimore's defense really came up big in the end, and Baltimore ended up winning the division in the AFC North. The Ravens are a 2-point favorite in this one, and I actually agree. The Chargers have already seen the Ravens here. For them to win, they really got to find a way to stop Lamar Jackson because they did a terrible job. They really struggled in that against the Ravens offense here, and they better figure it out if they're going to win this game here. Rivers has struggled lately, and that if you're a Chargers fan like me, I don't. It's really, really going to be hard for me to watch this game because if the Chargers are going to really establish something here, Rivers really needs to be on his A game. He cannot have turnovers here. I don't know from what is lately been. He's been turning the ball over a lot more than he mostly had all season towards the end, and that is another concern. Obviously, there's some injuries also with the Chargers. It's also playing a role. And there's nothing more than former Charger Eric Weddle to get back at his team one more time, which they already did in the first meeting back at StubHub, but this one is in Baltimore here. Baltimore to win, they got to do what they did against like they did in the first meeting against the Chargers. Establish the run, really mix up plays, and I guarantee, and this might not even be a game if Baltimore can stay close to that to those key points there. It's a tough one to pick here. But if I'm going to make a pick here, I got to go with the Baltimore Ravens here. I just think the Chargers, despite everybody in the media saying, oh, they might be dangerous on the road here and all, I pretty much think the way Rivers is struggling right now, their offense really has got to come alive. He cannot afford to make turnovers. If this continues in this game, there's no question the Ravens are going to win this game for sure. I like the Ravens to beat the Chargers here, but it's going to be much closer than people will think in that first meeting at the StubHub Center between these two teams. It'll be a close, very, very close game. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game again. I expect it to be, but I just think the Ravens are going to go 2 for 2 in this one here. The Chargers are struggling, and if they don't figure out how to stop Baltimore here, they're pretty much one for a team that went 12-4, and you end up playing a Ravens team that basically had to go through their backup quarterback in Lamar Jackson, their first-round pick, and you get embarrassed like that at home. If they don't find a way to stop this game, there's no question you got to go with the Ravens in this one, and I'm going to stick with that pick. Ravens over the Chargers. Moving to the NFC now. NFC wildcard game. The Seattle Seahawks versus the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys are a 2.5-point favorite in this one. That number I probably expect to be 2 by kickoff. Russell Wilson barely winning the game against last week against the Cardinals. 12-21, 152 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Dak Prescott for the Cowboys, 27-44, 387 yards, 4 touchdowns and no interceptions, and actually was a meaningless game in a game that they came back to beat the Giants. Now, key things here for this game here. Dallas's defense is going to be put to the test here. Because the way Seattle's offense has played in the last few weeks, they've been fantastic. Now, this is where the Cowboy defense needs to come alive. Now, I know you're probably going to all say to me, well, they did a number on the Saints and all that, blah, 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 blah. Yes, but go back to their last 2 games prior to the Saints one. They really struggled. And their offense really has struggled. They had to come from behind to beat the Giants in a meaningless game. That, to me, made no sense when they should have been resting their starters. But yet, probably the Cowboys wanted to prove something last week. Now, for Seattle, they got more of the playoff experience, especially especially part of their team that has been left over. Of course, Russell Wilson. They basically been in a rebuilding brand, but Pete Carroll has done a fantastic job with the Seahawks and their offense to really bring the team. Now, their defense is another concern here. Dallas defense is just a tad better than the Seahawks here, but Seahawks probably has the better offense here. It's really going to be a tough pick here. Tough to say what happens in this game, but if I'm going to make a pick here, I'm actually going to go with the Seattle Seahawks here. Russell Wilson's got the playoff experience. He's got the victories. He's got one Super Bowl ring, way more than Dak Prescott has. Dak Prescott won playoff game, and they got embarrassed by Green Bay a couple of years ago. The Dallas Cowboys got to prove themselves now to be a legit Super Bowl contender, because in my opinion, unless if they win this game and get far in the playoffs, I don't consider them Super Bowl contenders. This team's got to find a way to stick together, and I don't think it could not have come at a worse opponent, and that is the Seahawks. Seahawks may have rebranded a little bit here, but I bet more of my money on Russell Wilson here to get the job done. And that is why I'm picking the Seahawks here. Russell Wilson with more playoff experience than Dak Prescott, and I guarantee you that to me is enough for me to say that Seattle, I think, will win this game. It'll be a close game. It's going to be low scoring, but I like the Seahawks in this one here. Seahawks over the Cowboys. And of course, the other NFC wildcard game, the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Chicago Bears. Bears are a 6-point favorite in this one, and I agree. Philly barely getting in, and they had good help from the Bears themselves, beating the Vikings last week in order for the Eagles to get in. But you go with the person that has got you to the Super Bowl, in Nick Foles. A lot of the sports analysts, football analysts, have said that the Eagles probably, other than the Seahawks, probably may be the dark horse in the NFC to do a lot of damage to divisional winning teams. Now Foles, even though his health is going to be a little bit of a question because he did hurt his ribs in a game against Washington, the game they had to have in order to try to get in the postseason. He went 28 of 33, 221 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. And Trubisky in a big win over the Vikings, 18 of 26, 163 yards, no touchdowns and no interceptions here. This is really a tough game here. Tough game. Even though the odds say that the Bears should beat the Eagles here, I don't know if I necessarily buy that. Keep in mind, the Eagles may not be the same as they were last year in their Super Bowl run, but they still have most of their roster, even though they don't have a day because he's out for the season here. And that's still, and the running is going to be a little bit of a concern. Chicago may have the defense, but I just cannot count out Nick Foles. He'll be ready for this game. I'm not sure if he'll be a game time decision, but I think he's going to play in this game for sure. It's really going to be tough to say who wins this game on Sunday. Philly's offense, just the tad better. Chicago has the defense. But if I got to pick a winner for this game here, I'm actually going to go with the Eagles here. The Eagles and Nick Foles, they got the experience. They're finally getting on the groove. And I just think with Foles, they're a much better team other than Carson Wentz. And I feel bad for Wentz because he's pretty much done for the remainder of this season. Going in the next season, who knows how his health is going to be going into the 2019 season. But I'm actually going to go with the Eagles here. I think with their playoff experience enough, Chicago may have the defense, but Philly's got the experience, and they got the trophy last year, and they're not afraid to go defend their title. And that is why I actually like the Eagles in this game. I think the Eagles are going to go into Soldier Field and upset the Bears. I think the Bears may have peaked too early here with this young team, but don't worry. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with in the upcoming seasons. They got the defense. If they have a few more pieces of their offense going in the next season, they're going to be much more dangerous in the next few years. But this game here, I think the Bears are peaking a little bit too early here. That's why I like the Eagles in this one. I think the Eagles will go into Chicago and win in an upset. I'm going with the Philadelphia Eagles here. Eagles over the Bears. All right, guys, that wraps up my wild card picks here. Of course, tune in next week when I talk about my picks for the divisional games. I'll be making all of my picks all the way to the Super Bowl. So, guys, enjoy these playoff games this weekend, and I'll talk to you guys next week when I talk about my picks for the divisional round. Take care and enjoy your football weekend.